There is a statement that this movie is based on a true story, where a married couple named James and Amy, together with their baby, take a trip to a harbor for healing. They sail on a yacht together with several people in the Sea of Mexico. Some of the people who join are Amy's old friends, Zach, then Lauren, who is Zach's crush, and Dan, who owns the yacht, along with his new girlfriend, Michelle. So the total number of people who join this healing trip is 7. The theme of the trip is reunion, and also to celebrate Zach's birthday, because they have not met for a long time. But there is one thing that makes Amy insecure, which is her phobia of the sea, which comes back when she wants to enter the harbor. That reminds her of the bad past when she was a child at the sea. Therefore, so she can feel calmer, she uses a life jacket before entering the harbor, just in case. After Zach gets a big birthday cake, Amy and the others start to sail away from the land while enjoying the steady breeze at sea. To make it better, Zach thinks about smoking, but Dan warns him that it is not allowed to smoke on this yacht because it is a new one he just bought, and he does not want bad things to happen. Meanwhile, Amy and James place their baby in a room with a big bed, where they also put a pair of baby monitors, so they can check if the baby cries or not. They then go out to have fun with friends. But when they sit together, Amy gets asked about why she keeps wearing a life jacket. Because she does not want her phobia to be known, she answers jokingly, which makes her friends confused for a while, but then they do not think about it much. After Amy and the others dance, and Zach, together with Lauren, do the Titanic pose, Amy and the others start to feel hot. So Michelle suggests they jump into the sea. Because Amy's friends can swim, they agree to jump, including her husband James, who also wants to jump. But not Amy, because she is still haunted by her phobia, while Dan says he'll follow later. After they find diving goggles, a knife, and a dolphin float, Amy's friends start to jump into the sea, while Amy and Dan talk about their memories of friendship, especially about Amy's phobia of the sea. That makes Dan remember one of his friends who had a phobia of circus clowns, but he helped that friend to fight the phobia by bringing him to the circus. So Dan wants to do the same thing to Amy. As a result, she screams, and finally,
No! You let me down, Dan! Let me down!
Amy gets terrorized by her phobia of the sea. That makes her shocked and triggers the bad past again when she was a kid, which is the time when her father drowned in the deep sea while Amy was busy playing with water. After the friends are shocked by Amy's condition, they want to climb back to the yacht using the ladder. But the ladder is not there because Dan forgot to lower it, and finally, Amy and the others get trapped in the sea. While James calms Amy down, the other friends try to reach the edge of the yacht, but it is too high to reach. Sometime later, Michelle starts to feel unwell because the seawater makes her cold, so her boyfriend Dan tries to calm her. He then wants to borrow the dolphin float from Michelle to use it as a stepping tool to reach the edge of the yacht, but the float is too slippery. After several uses, the float gets torn, and finally, it deflates. As a result, the friends blame Dan because he forgot to lower the ladder, so he apologizes and asks them to stop blaming him. Not long after that, they realize their country's flag is hanging down, so Dan tries to reach it. But when he finally gets it, the flag immediately tears in half. The friends then wait for something that can help them, while Dan uses the diving goggles to check the situation under the sea, but he does not find anything there. Suddenly, Michelle feels something touch her leg, suspecting it is a shark, which scares her friends. Therefore, Dan checks into the sea, but he does not find a shark, so he suggests that the friends gather while kicking each other's feet, so the shark will go away. After some time, they feel sure that the shark is gone. But then the friends blame Dan again, because he does not follow the right procedure when using a yacht, or prepare an emergency plan. That makes Dan stressed, so he and his friends argue, and finally, he goes away from them. Sometime later, when the friends are at a dead end, Michelle complains about the cold again. So she starts to use Dan's body as a stepping stone, but fails. Michelle then remembers that Amy uses a life jacket, so she tries to get half of it, but the friends stop her, which makes her question the value of their friendship. As a result, she panics more by screaming that she does not want to die. Because Lauren is the best swimmer, she tries to calm Michelle by using a floating technique. But after some time, Michelle still complains about the cold, while the others hope another ship will pass their location, and rain will fall so they can drink the water. They then hear Zach's phone ringing inside his jacket, with the jacket hanging at the edge of the yacht. Therefore, Dan quickly takes it, and Zach immediately answers the call from his family, wishing him happy birthday. When he tries to tell about their situation, Michelle becomes impatient and grabs the phone from Zach to ask for help, which makes him upset and pushes Michelle away. As a result, the phone turns off after it gets hit by seawater from their quarrel. So Michelle cannot accept that. And finally, Zach gets so mad that he throws his phone away. After Michelle screams in panic again, and James's leg gets cramped, one of the friends' hopes comes true. A ship passes near their location. But when a friend screamed to the ship to stop, the people on that ship are too busy and do not realize Amy and the others, so they fail to get help. Dan then thinks of an idea, which is to make a rope using clothes from his friends, so they have no choice but to take off their clothes to survive. While the friends make the rope, James borrows the diving goggles and the knife, and goes down to check under the yacht to find a part that can be broken into. But in the middle of searching, James gets disturbed because his goggles are filled with water. Therefore, he takes them off to remove the water to the surface, but suddenly he gets shocked when he accidentally drops the knife from his mouth. Feeling that the tool is needed, James quickly dives to take it back until he succeeds. However, after he finally gets it, he becomes panicked when he starts to run out of breath. So he quickly goes back to the surface, but he does not realize that the yacht's propeller is above, and finally, his head gets hit. Meanwhile, the friends have already managed to make a rope and also connect that rope to the yacht's wire fence. But when Zach climbs the rope and almost reaches the edge of the yacht, suddenly the rope breaks, and finally, he gets trapped in the sea again. Amy then feels worried about James, who has not come back yet, but not long after that, he returns safely, although his ear already bleeds. Lauren realizes that James's skull is already cracked, so he must be taken to the hospital immediately. Because James still holds the knife, Zach borrows it, and finally, he releases his anger by stabbing the square part of the yacht. Dan cannot accept this, so he stops Zach's action, until Dan does not realize that the knife points at Zach's body. And finally, Zach gets stabbed. As a result, the situation becomes worse, and Michelle gets scared that the blood may attract sharks. Therefore, Michelle quickly goes away from the others. After they hear the babies cry, they realize Michelle is gone. So Dan tries to search for her. It turns out she has died, with her body sinking far below the surface, so Dan struggles to catch her. And finally, he goes down into the dark, deep sea. Sometime later, Zach starts to feel cold while talking about his beautiful memories with Lauren, and also confesses that he has actually liked her for a long time. After Zach regrets that he did not confess his feelings earlier, Lauren realizes that Zach has already stopped breathing, and finally, Amy and the others feel the loss. That makes James angry, and he punches Dan, blaming him because both Zach and Michelle died, and James suspects that what matters most in Dan's mind is that the yacht still stands tall. In the end, Dan thinks that the deaths of his friends are really his fault, and he confesses the truth about the yacht, that it is not his, but only borrowed from his boss. That is why Dan stops Zach from damaging the yacht, because he does not want his boss to be angry if he sees the yacht's body scratched. Dan adds that he is just an ordinary employee, pretending to be rich, a liar who has deceived Michelle, only because he wants to feel confident after making others believe in him. After letting go of Zach, Amy and the others feel desperate again, thinking about how to get back to the yacht, until this situation makes Lauren decide to risk swimming to the shore, even though she is not sure whether they are already too far or not. She reasons that she does not want to die in this situation, so after saying goodbye to Amy and the others, Lauren dares to swim to the shore. When Amy hears her babies cry again, she sees the square mark on the yacht's body, which reminds her of when Zach tried to stab that part. Therefore, she plans to pry it open with a knife, but the knife has already fallen to the bottom of the sea when Zach released it after stabbing Dan. However, Dan still tries to find it no matter what. Sometime later, when it is getting dark, James's condition becomes worse, with him complaining that he feels very tired. And when the rain finally falls, Amy drinks the rainwater while guiding James to drink as well, but he does not open his mouth, which shows that he has already died, and finally, Amy loses him. Meanwhile, Dan still keeps trying to find the knife, daring himself to dive into the deep and dark sea. After Amy lets go of her husband at night, she sees Dan exhausted after swimming over and over again. So Amy helps him get closer to the yacht, and they take shelter under it while the heavy rain falls. At that time, Dan sees his own reflection in the diving goggles, which makes him very angry. Therefore, he vents his emotion by hitting the yacht with the goggles. But when the glass front detaches and he thinks the glass is strong, he remembers the square part of the yacht's body that Zach stabbed. So Dan stabs the gap with the glass, making himself a stepping tool, and he tells Amy to climb on his body. So she does it, and after several failed attempts, Finally, Amy succeeds in reaching the yacht's floor. Without wasting time, she quickly presses the button to lower the ladder for Dan. Then Amy goes to the room, and finally, mother and child reunite. When Amy releases her longing with her baby, Dan wants to climb back to the yacht, but his heart says otherwise, telling him not to. Finally, he does not do it. This makes Amy confused because Dan does not come. So Amy goes outside and sees Dan going farther away from the yacht, without using Amy's life jacket. Thinking that Dan wants to do something unthinkable because of his mistakes, Amy tries to save him by throwing the life buoy into the sea, which makes her remember her bad past again. It turns out that when she was still unable to swim, Amy accidentally kicked her father's head hard, making him unconscious. Therefore, Amy tried to save him before he ran out of breath. But because Amy was not strong enough to lift him, she failed to save him, and finally, her father died. Not wanting the same thing to happen again, Amy bravely fights her phobia by jumping into the sea, and she tries to save Dan, who has already sunk far below the surface, before both of them, including Amy herself, run out of breath. The scene then shifts to the next morning, where a fisherman with his boat accidentally finds Amy's yacht. The fisherman shouts toward the yacht, but no one answers, only seeing the ladder still in a lowered position, with the life buoy still floating. Open Water 2, a drift movie, ends with Amy's baby crying, but Amy is not there to calm the child. Instead, she goes outside to see the surroundings, where Dan lies face down on the deck, covered partly by something, and finally, Amy looks sad. Is this a sign that Amy fails to save Dan? Or has Amy already become a wandering ghost after drowning together with Dan, and only able to surrender to hearing her baby's cry, without realizing the fisherman's boat nearby? What do you think? Comment down below. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification so you don't miss the latest recaps.